Welcome to A Scrap Life, a podcast solely focused on the hustlers, grinders, operators, and business owners who live and breathe the scrap metal industry every day. We are the original recyclers. No suits required, just guts and hard work. Here is your host, Brett Eckhart.
On this podcast, I sit down with a guy that was basically adopted by my dad as another son and a man I consider my brother. Naturally, like all brothers, we don't agree on everything, but like brothers, we both have a similar vision and passion for where we want to take the transportation and scrap businesses in the future. Enjoy the podcast as Berry Prescott and I discuss his roots in our company and why transportation plays such a vital role in what we do every day. Take a listen. All right, let's do this. Berry Prescott, cheers. We finally found a time to sit down. We've been talking about doing it for a while. I always like to get people in here to do this podcast that are pretty heavily knee deep in the scrap business. Mm-hmm. And while we have a lot of people in our company that are knee deep in the scrap business, I like to get people from outside companies in here and just discuss their history and everything else. But I almost felt like I wouldn't even be doing us an injustice not to get you in here to talk about scrap, because you've been involved since, I say day one, at least day one for me. Mm-hmm. And what, 1999? Right. Yep. Is when you started. Mm-hmm. So give us a little history about how you came to find yourself in this exciting...
In United.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Well, honestly, to come to work for United, I don't know what drew me to this company. I was working for Franklin Building Supply, and United was always bringing beams in, truss joist beams in for them, and I just got drawn to wanting to work for this company. And I'd met a couple of their drivers, Pat Hagen being one of them. He's one that helped me get on, in one of his multiple times here. But bug your dad. I think until the point where he just gave me a job because he was tired of me fucking calling him.
Yeah. So at that time, you weren't driving truck?
Not over the road.
Okay, so, you're local driving for Franklin Building Supply.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, at that time I was dispatching for Franklin Building Supply.
Okay.
I had been driving for him and had started dispatching for him at that time. But I was a young kid, didn't have any over-the-road experience, but that's what I wanted to do. And whatever that is that got stuck in my brain, that's what I was after. I was going to drive for United. I was going over the road, and I actually worked the first week without a paycheck because I teamed with Pat Hagen and just to prove that I could handle it.
You could do the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
at that time, in 1999, you started talking to my dad, came to work. How many trucks did we have in the fleet at that time?
So at that time, we had 2 full-time scrap trucks. We had one that would run California during the summertime and come on hauling scrap for us in the wintertime. And we had Bob Smith, who was just California. And I want to say 4 or 5 owner-operators that pretty much just ran California.
Okay.
So
not a lot of Northwest back like we do today.
No.
So I did this podcast with my dad, and we talked about the scrap business and whatever else, and we kind of got into the trucking side of the business. Mm-hmm. And I was asking him, just kind of going into the difference of the trucking side of our business and the scrap side of our business. And my dad made a pretty strong point that trucking is our business,
Right.
And I tell people this all the time, what separates us from maybe some of our competition or from some other businesses is that we handle most of our own freight. Mm-hmm. A good jag of it. We do run some outside trucks, but generally speaking, if we can handle it and if it's in our lane, then we try and take care of it. But yeah. I know, my dad's passion has always been trucks, And I know enough about trucks to be dangerous, and that's it. Not an ounce more. And I understand what they do for our business, though. And the actual truck and the nuances of it and all that it's a whole different conversation. But so 99, you come to work, team drive, first week, Pat Hagen. How does it progress from there? Like, what's the...
Ultimately from there, I started running and just fell in love with it. Freaking enjoyed the business, enjoyed the people I got to meet all the time, and just continued to grow and to chase what's now become, our dream.
Yep.
The the equipment's changed, the trailers have changed, the commodity hasn't. It's always amazed me, how it just keeps coming, how scrap just keeps coming.
Yeah. It ebbs and flows, but and it still shows up at the door, yeah. Or we go get it, yeah.
Right. As this valley's grown, it's of course allowed our business to grow, and there was times, especially through the winter months, where what we hauled to Portland depended on what tomorrow's what depended on what we bought today.
Yeah.
Our old Mack crusher that had the handles on it, you'd have to run. Sometimes I'd be out there helping run freaking handles to crush a load so I could go Portland.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have changed, but I don't think like the hustle's changed.
Mm-mm.
Like, we may have more equipment, more guys, more facilities, but I think like one thing we've always had is a ton of hustle.
Yep.
And I've always, I've taken a lot of pride in that. I mean, as far as in our team, and just because that's the guys we've looked for, people that have that hustle.
Right.
And so I'm sitting there thinking, 99 was my senior year in high school. I went to college, and I came back in 2004 full time. And that's in 2004 you were still driving truck full time. Mm-hmm. So what year did you make the transition from truck driver to dispatcher?
I want to say it was 05, but don't quote me on that entirely. But it was right in there.
In that range.
In that range, yeah.
And that my dad was doing the dispatching up to that point.
No, he'd stepped between. We'd opened up our brokerage and we had Mary in there. That was our dispatcher.
I remember that. Yep. Because we had the brokerage at that time,
mm-hmm.
and then I do remember that kind of. It wasn't very long that she was dispatching.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. She probably dispatched me for, I want to say 2 years.
Yeah. And before that, it was my dad.
Yep.
So to that,
we used to do some outlaw shit.
Yeah, I know that. I do know that, and I'm not afraid to talk about it because it is what it is. But so in that time, from let's say 99 to 03, was probably when you kind of formed the strongest bond with my dad. Mm-hmm. Obviously, him being your dispatcher, and you and I have had this conversation a lot. But you're basically like my brother. I don't have brothers. All my brothers work here. Right. I mean, that's the way it is, and that's the way I've built it. I've built it purposefully that way. Yeah. Some people ask me, is it a family business? I'm like, it's family as they come. Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, as soon as we bought Schnitzer out in 2016, it truly became a family business.
Totally good.
I mean, so, I know my dad and you have a big bond around the trucking side of the business. And so when you came in and started dispatching trucks, how did the outlook change for you between being a truck driver and the dispatcher of our small but building fleet at that time?
It was rough. Making the change from just the freedom of being out on the road to being stuck in a corner.
Yeah.
And freaking talking on the phone all day and freaking, it definitely a different swing. I enjoyed it. It was a new challenge, new learning hustle for me, and worked our way through it. I think it definitely helps that I'd done it, right? Mm-hmm. That the guys had appreciation, when I was trying to trying to talk to them about what needed to be done, and just knowing that I understood what they were up against.
And I can't say that like enough. Like one of my biggest, like, it was almost a fuck up, but it wasn't. Like I got talked out of it. Was when we were going to replace you dispatching, and we've had this, you and I have had this conversation, but I think it's like super worthy of this podcast. Is we were trying to decide who was going to replace Todd, I believe at the time, Stradley. Mm-hmm. And we were kind of going back and forth. Who could do a good job? Do we need to go hire somebody or whatever? Whatever the conversation was back and forth at that time. And you're the one that told me, I think Jim Combs can do this job. And I was like, dude, Jim's getting old. Like he's not, like I don't know if that he can. And and you're like, no, he can do the job. And I was like. I felt like at the time, I felt like I had a lot of pushback,
right. And
I pushed back pretty hard on it. But man, that's probably like the best decision that we've made as a team, right?
Yeah,
like
he is solid.
That guy, and the reason I bring that up is A, I don't see everything. I do screw a lot of stuff up, but B, Jim had that in common with you.
Mm-hmm.
Jim done the job.
Yeah.
And I think when people deal with dispatchers or brokers or whatever out there, like on the transportation side, it's people that have actually done the job, I feel like stand a lot better of a chance to, A, do a good job but at the dispatch side, but B, they're like more relatable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so I think that's probably helped your cause on the dispatching side.
Oh, yeah.
From the sounds of it.
Yeah. It's easy to... Special needs, right? Special needs with customers. Easy to explain to them, how it's not going to work or what we need to make it work. Instead of trying to dispatch the driver to do it, to wind up with just a big mess, or having the driver try to educate the dispatcher to get back to the freaking, it makes things run a lot smoother.
So, from a dispatching side, so when you were dispatching trucks, how many trucks were you dispatching at that time?
We had, I believe with Kenny on there, we had 12 trucks going.
Yeah.
So.
And so when we were talking trucks, we were talking like over-the-road trucks, basically. Correct. Northwest, a little bit of Montana, a little bit of Washington, Portland-ish,
yeah. Oregon
and Idaho. So.
Yeah.
But also at that time, we had a couple trucks running California reefer freight for the brokerage. Which weren't your responsibility, but
yeah, when we shut down the brokerage, Jim became my responsibility. Yeah, and his reefer.
Exactly.
That was interesting.
And it was cool. I thought that time was we bought Jim that curtain van trailer, which I still wish I had. I kick myself maybe now for selling it, but it is what it is. Hindsight 2020. But we bought the wire chopping line. Not that long. We were running. He was running chops for a while to. Yeah. All over the place. Yeah, we sent that shit everywhere. Whoever was buying copper, we sent it to them. And
UBCs and but people were afraid of that trailer. We'd get out of the Northwest, and it was a big fight. I got to where I'd call the guy that was unloading or loading that trailer and totally explain to them what it was that was coming at them.
Yeah,
because they didn't know, and the trailer scared them.
Do you think that's still the case?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Remember we had that load. We were clearing Kentucky with a load of UBCs.
Yeah.
And they rejected the load because they wouldn't drive a forklift on the trailer.
Yeah. They'll drive a forklift inside a box van, but they won't drive it in a curtain van. It's crazy. I mean, it's the same deck width, same everything. Yeah.
Luckily, like 50 or 60 miles away, you're able to make another sale and not lose much money on it.
I know.
But
yeah. So after that, after we did that, then we finally hooked Jim up to a flatbed. He ran flatbed for like a couple of years though.
Yep.
And then I eventually moved him into the dispatch and doing what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, kind of one of the coolest things that we've done recently with our company is, and I don't want to skip too many steps in the process, but so I won't go there yet. I'll change my mind. I'll wait. But so after dispatching, then when we got Jim in there, basically to give you some help because we started getting more trucks and things. We started, our local fleet was building, and we had 8 damn things going 8 ways sideways.
Yeah.
Then kind of what did your role become?
Well, so Jim was our first guy that I was actually able to not have to worry about, right?
Yeah.
We pulled some guys in there, and they did a good job, but I still had to keep an eye on it. Jim, I got to where I don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Jim took care of it and was able to actually start rolling, more towards the equipment side of things, more towards our repairs, our maintenance, and start putting a better eye on that and a better plan together for what we were doing there.
So, as we built yards and we built facilities, like anybody in the scrap business knows that you got a shitload of equipment, and obviously we have a jag of trucks now, and we run a lot of local trucks, over the road trucks, and plus you start adding Cinnabogens and you start adding shears and excavators and loaders, and it becomes a pretty big task just to manage just the maintenance, let alone like all the repairs, and you're dealing with in the big heavy iron, shit's breaking, you're putting a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on stuff.
Yeah.
So have you always been like pretty mechanically sound? I mean, your whole life, or is it something you've just kind of picked up?
No, my whole life I've always been, had the mechanic side of things, been able to look at something and understand how it works and how to try to make it better. And I've always been a hot rodder. I mean, look at our trucks.
Yeah.
You can see it.
Oh, I know. So anybody wants to know why our trucks look the way they do, there's 2 people in my life that have enabled me, or not enabled me to buy a boat. Not that I want a boat, because I really don't give 2 shits. But is you and my dad. Yeah. And it took me a while. Like, I'm the first to admit, like, it took me a while to understand. And I'm still probably a little more on the conservative side. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, my desk is next to the accountant, so I kind of have to be. Right. But, like, when it comes to putting money into our trucks. But I remember my dad was the biggest one that preached to me, like, if you have nice equipment, if you roll around in nice equipment through the scale house to your customer, whether you're customer on the freight end or your customer, you're picking up the scrap end, whoever, they see that you take care of your shit, you run nice gear, which means you're able to recruit a better driver, so then you got a better quality brain behind the steering wheel. He's like, that will pay dividends. And I'm not sure that the math still all the way like adds up 100%, but it's a pride thing. And I will say, like, that's one of the things I'm probably the most prideful of now. And it's probably as much just because it's kind of like a legacy for me with my dad and everything else that goes into our business is, if we're going to show up to a job site and we're going to come crush all the cars, we're going to roll in fucking 20 nice trucks and load it all out, or we're going to go down the highway and go pick up with 20 loads of lumber. It's going to be 20 nice trucks that pull it all out, and I think that you've carried on that tradition, so I don't have to write the check, I just have to sign the check. And now Brian signs the check. But I mean, it's one of those, like, I allow it, in my opinion, because it's like what we do. Right. And I think that the reason we do it, and the reason that I'm willing to do it, is because you know what needs to happen. Right. And is that something that you, from the truck side, did you pick that up from my dad, or is that just something you've always kind of had in the back of your mind on the truck side, or once you started driving over the road, it just kind of got in your blood, or like, where did that come from?
Really a multitude, always being drawn to trucks, having your dad that was into trucks, and just people I met on the road, that were into trucks, and then in the same regard, being the guy firsthand, with the customers and seeing their reaction to things I was changing on my truck and trying trying to do things differently, and
Yeah.
so it just drove that. It sparked it.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up, we were just talking about a few minutes ago, was if you look at our setup, I think we don't have any other than on the local side. We don't have any 3-axle tractors anymore, right?
No, our
Everything over the road's 4-axle tractors.
oh, yeah, our last one's in the shop now to become a 4-axle.
So people ask me, well, how much weight can you haul? Like, how's everything set up? And I'm like, and some of those questions, I mean, 80% of those questions are over my head. Mm-hmm. But I did want to bring up that from your standpoint, and really I didn't even know this. You're the one that told me the other day when we were talking about Truck 45, was we spec'd that truck and trailer to be able to do that. So can you just walk me through, like, high level, when we talk about our quads, 4-axle tractors, 4-axle trailers, just to give anybody that watches this kind of a little bit of insight on our setup? Like, you designed that yourself. Like, you put that spec together. Mm-hmm. So what is that? And how did you come up with it?
Well, it got drove because, hauling scrap pays by the weight, right? So, the more weight we can put on, the more we're going to get paid. So it drove trying to push that, and dealing with our main haul is through Oregon, who can be challenging on bridge laws. You can be under gross, but still over on your bridges, and they're being more than willing to write you a ticket for it.
Yeah.
And so I just started playing with things and started messing with the geometry of the equipment and where we needed to place axles to move weight, and then not only once I kind of figured out, I did the trailer first. I was running truck 37, had moved its tag axle around, the fifth wheel plate around, trying to figure out how weight would transfer. And I built the trailer. Our trailer setup is still pretty much the same as we did in 2000 when we first designed those. And I worked with the engineers at Western Trailer and built four more inches of bridge length into it than their standard spec. Moved all our landing.
So when you say bridge length, like basically from
the kingpin of the trailer to the center of the tag axle on the trailer.
Okay, you basically got them to extend that 4 inches.
Correct.
So they have to extend the frame rails.
No,
everything. They just pushed everything back.
We just pushed everything
because it's still by length. So they just had to push the whole axle setup 4 inches back.
Yeah, I worked really hard to try to convince them to build it 53 foot 2 inches. Right? They wouldn't do it.
No, that makes sense.
Not willing to pay the fines from the government when they got caught doing it. Like, who's going to catch it?
Come
on.
I know.
It's 2 inches. But so worked that, and our United spec Western trailers are, like I said, 4 inches longer. The landing legs are in a different position because we run so far ahead of trunnion on the trucks that we needed the landing legs further back to get them out of the way, so we weren't having a clearance issue there. We designed another brace on the bottom of the frame rails. That time,
rails of the
trailers.
Trailer. Okay.
At that time, if you looked at 53-foot trailers, right in the landing leg area, most of them had an S bend to them when you were loaded.
Okay.
And so I went to in doing the spec with Western Trailer, I said I want to eliminate that. It just looks goofy, right?
Yeah.
And so we came up with how they thought we could eliminate that, and it worked. And it's standard on all Western trailers now to have that extra.
Did you patent it? Did they give you you royalties on that?
No, nothing there. But like I said, it was a joint effort.
Yeah.
It was the engineers that came up with how they were going to do it. It was me saying, this is just goofy. Right? How can we fix this?
Exactly.
So, so we got that set up.
How long did it take you to kind of get that dialed in with Western Trailers? That's all of our flatbeds are all Western Trailers built right here in Boise, Idaho, which is awesome that you can have that relationship and be able to do that. But what kind of timeline did it take you to get that done?
We probably worked a good 6, if not 8 weeks back and forth on the spec. It was before Gary Highland was our salesman. I want to say his name was Justin, but I don't remember for sure. But he was really good at me bouncing ideas off him, and can we do this? Can we do that?
Yeah.
What about this? We space our axles out differently than standard as well. And our reason for doing that, we did a lot of partials, a lot of LTL freight, and so I wanted to be able to, when we had something funny, just be able to throw it wherever on the trailer.
Yeah.
And so ultimately we built it so the quad on the trailer picks weight up off the nose faster, and we can haul more back there. We were able to.
So that was the main purpose, was enable to haul more on the actual trailer.
Yeah.
And be able to suck weight off of the drives.
Yeah.
On the truck.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was an idea that Marty Wallace had come up with. He had built a 4-axle trailer before we did, that Wilson built for him. And he kind of spaced his axles out like that, and I just kind of rolled from his idea.
Yeah.
And the engineers were still able to design it without having to redesign a frame rail. So we used the Idaho legal frame rail that Western Trailer builds, and just space the axles differently on it.
So what is the length? What is your bridge length now from on our trucks and trailers for the most part?
Well, lengthwise, for like in Oregon, we're 56 foot on our 7-axle bridge. So we're 91,000 pounds that in Oregon we're able to haul there. Oregon's different than all the other states, so everybody else in the Northwest is going to give us 93,000 pounds on that same grouping.
Okay.
Utah's going to give us 93,500 pounds on that. So that's one of the hitches with Oregon, because you're still only 105,000 pounds is what you're able to register at gross wise, but at 91,000 pound bridge, you're not putting that much weight on your steering.
No. Yeah, you're pretty light.
Yeah. Yep. So in working back and forth, after we'd had the trailer and I was messing around with truck 37, kind of had an idea, and I started working with the engineers with Peterbilt and going back and forth on the tractor spec. Because ultimately your steering is your free weight. To get away from the bridge laws, it's got to go on the nose.
So whatever you can shove forward onto your steers is basically gravy.
Right.
Like it's like you said, free weight that you can pack.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So you got to. That's why we run so far ahead of trunnion. Why we why the tags are stretched out away from our drivers like they are. To try to make it all work, and it does. We're packing, and it depends on the load and how the truck's loaded, but our 4-axle tractors will pack 12,800 pounds to 13.2 on the nose.
Which is pretty crazy.
It's not common.
Yeah.
So I tell people all the time that, that I can put that much weight on the nose, and they want to call bullshit.
Just go to the scale.
It is what it is, man. I can show you overload tickets where guys got a ticket for having too much weight on their steering.
Yeah.
So.
So what is last question on that, but what is the overload weight on the steering? If it's technically free weight, what is that number?
Well, you can still only have it there. So 13,200 pounds is as much as we can put on our tires legally. Okay. That's
because of the tire
load limit.
Yeah.
Correct. So, but we're not. If we were to put a heavier front axle on it and a heavier steer tire, I think all we're going to do is
you're trading weight.
Add a bunch of weight to not actually haul any more weight.
Yeah, you're just trading.
Right.
You're just trading weight.
Yeah.
So truck 37, right? What year? What truck is that? That's a 90.
That's a 2000.
99. I was gonna say 90, 2000.
Yeah.
Peterbilt.
Yep.
Okay. So, all these trucks that we run, for the most part, have always been Peterbilt, and here recently, I say you bought a Kenworth.
Yep, I did. Kenworth is freaking funny because, I've built a lot of Peterbilts over the years, and we're starting to kind of have that. What if we were to build a Kenworth? And we've spec Kenworths over the years, right? But we never bought one.
Uh-huh.
And, And my buddy Troy told me he was building this one. He said, I'm going to get it done, get it to your open house. I'm going to sell it at your show. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, then he rolls in with it. I'm like,
Yeah. And then we had a driver that liked it.
Yeah.
And so,
which is a huge part of the battle. You know, got a driver that just was begging to be able to freaking drive.
And I don't. And here's the thing with me. I don't know that just the average person would understand that wasn't in the transportation trucking business.
Mm-hmm.
But when a driver likes their truck, like, or they ask you to be able to drive XYZ truck,
Yep.
and it works for you as a company, it works in your system, you're better off by far, as long as the driver's good at their job,
Yep.
like Jeff is,
Mm-hmm.
to give him the fucking truck.
Oh,
Like, because you know he's going to take care of it.
Yep.
You know he's going to treat it good. He's not, if he likes the truck that much, I would assume, I mean, I guess he's been in it for about a couple weeks now,
Yeah.
maybe a month. Does he still like it as much as he did?
I asked him last night. He was at the shop, and do you like it? Oh, yeah, I love it.
Okay.
You know, after his first run, it's
Uh-huh.
all totally different than what he's used to, right? Totally
Yeah.
different. And he got home. I said, well, what do you think? He's like, I'm a nervous freaking wreck. I'm like, well, what's the matter? He's like, it's just all so different. He's like, I gotta go home, go to bed. I could hardly, I'm just too stressed out.
Yeah, yeah.
So then
Well,
it worked on from there, and I was talking to Jim the next day, and he had talked to him. And he said, yeah, I kind of got that a little bit from him. He was telling me he came out of Washougal, and it was foggy, and he was trying to hit his windshield wipers, well, they're not in the same spot he's used to, right?
uh-huh.
And was taking him a bit to find where his windshield wipers was, and he was just uncomfortable. And Jim said, well, didn't you sit down and figure where all your switches were before you left? He's like, no, I wasn't that smart.
No.
Yeah.
Jeff's a good guy.
Yeah.
And like we said, I mean, I wholeheartedly, you know, and a lot of that's from my dad, and now you, like, you guys are the truck guys. I love trucks. I love looking at them. I love what they do for our business. But you guys are the guys that understand that side of the business as far as the actual truck and kind of what drives it and what makes it go.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to go back through the history, and because of the trucks we drive and because of the pride we take on the transportation side of our business, it gave us the opportunity to build a truck shop, right? And I think nothing in our business ever, like, it doesn't just all appear, you know, from where we started even in '99 to where it's at today is like a ton of fucking hard work. It's a ton of like investment back in the business, and it's a ton of just chipping away at something. And the only reason, in my opinion, that we even have a truck shop is because of all the work we've done since 1974, right, on our trucks, and put it back into what we were doing, because we built a reputation for having nice trucks and running good equipment.
Yeah.
And that's because of my dad and because of you. So here, we just did our grand opening. It's been like a month now, it feels like, in that range. We just built a new truck shop. So, and the reason I bring this up is so you went from driving truck to dispatch, from dispatch to managing, and still do like all of our maintenance and some of our big like equipment capital purchases. I mean, I don't buy anything with a motor that I don't say, hey Barry, what do you think? I did buy a forklift the other day, but that's pretty basic. Yeah, but other than that, like, that's where I stop there before I'm like, all right, what do you think? Like, we need this excavator, we need this piece of equipment. Like, we do sit down and have those conversations. You know, I've listened to podcasts and listened to other people talk about, you know, and it's different industries, whatever, they talk about, you know, renting equipment, leasing equipment, and that's not really our style. We buy everything that we run. And we just a lot of times have to wait till we can afford it or wait till it fits in the budget, but we don't really rent anything. So all those decisions really are decisions that made primarily between you and me. So I'm super lucky to have that. I'm super lucky to have that ability to bounce that off of you, somebody that understands motors and understands equipment.
We got to throw Brian in there too, because he's the one being like, you can't do that.
Yeah, well, dude, Brian keeps me from buying 10 trucks. Like, he's like, Brett, you too. I'm like, oh. And maybe it keeps you from buying 10 and me buying 5, and he whittles us down to 2.
Right.
Yeah, and yeah, who's a big part of, because that guy knows what we can afford and what we can't. And sometimes my eyes get bigger than my wallet. But so we built a truck shop. So we've been working on it for about 8 months now, as far as from when we bought the building all the way till when we got it open.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what's going to be the difference maker between our truck shop and somebody else's truck shop?
Pride.
Pride in
the job that we're doing. Pride in getting you in and out of there. You know, we're not a shop that is going to band-aid things. You know, we're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix it right, and you're gonna be impressed with it.
Yeah, and I could answer that it wouldn't have been the same exact answer, but along the same lines, because you and I have had this conversation before. But I think the biggest thing about us, like, from a truck shop standpoint, is we run our own trucks. We work on our own trucks.
Mm-hmm.
We know what it needs, what it takes to get it down the road or get it up and running right now, or this is what you're going to fix today. But if you don't fix X, Y, and Z today, then you're going to have a big problem come down the road. So you guys are going to have to make that decision. But I think that's a big thing with our truck shop, and is just the pride that we take in our trucks.
Yeah, and the understanding of what the customer's up against to get that truck back on the road. We'll do the same thing. I mean, we've overhauled a motor in freaking 2 days before. It was a lot of hands on deck and a ton of hours put in those 2 days. But
yeah,
when things gotta go, things gotta go.
And
So
how? I guess my question is from a staffing standpoint, how many guys do you see down the road in that shop, in your new shop? Because to me, once we got it built, like I told you, that like, here's the keys, like, let's go. You figure it out. Where do you what's your vision with the truck shop down the road? What do you see? Maybe not guys, but just in general.
Yeah. So we opened the shop up with 7 guys. We totally get finished, moved in, and start chasing work, and the word gets out that we're in there. I'm really optimistic, that we're gonna double that, by Christmas 2021.
Okay.
So
that's a lot of outside trucks. Hopefully we're not
all ours.
Our trucks.
Brian will be kicking our butts.
Yeah. Which the nice thing, I was walking through it earlier today, and we have, I think, 4 of our trucks in there right now, give or take. Not all 4 under, what your truck's parked in the corner, but, and we got one I saw they had the motor in it. They feel like they're just tightening everything down. Like, we're about to have one back here soon,
right,
and a couple more down the road. So it was a space issue for us, in 2004 when we built that building. We built those 2 big bays, and that was a lot of space.
Yeah, but it was built as a warehouse, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it wasn't even built as a truck shop, because we had the old shop at that time over kind of where the recycling center used to be, and that was kind of the shop for what it is. Now it's a storage bay.
Yeah.
So give me a good story about my dad. I think he'll appreciate that. I know I'll appreciate it. About, you said we used to do some outlaw shit. I'm like, I like it.
Right.
Like, give me something that he would get a good chuckle out of, or that makes you laugh when you think about.
Oh man, so probably like his biggest biggest challenge to me, we ran 5 loads of scrap and brought lumber home in a week. before, you know. I think I'd left on Sunday. I was sitting over in Portland Monday, and I think he got the phone call that prices of iron was coming down, and he freaking got a hold of me, and he says, "Hey, bet you can't make 4 more loads to Portland this week." Really?
Yeah.
I'm like, "Do you want me to bring stuff back too?" He's like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Okay. And off and running we went, right?
Uh-huh.
We had a job going over in the Payette area, somewhere, I forget exactly where. So I'd gotten a couple loads there. I was hauling lumber into Fruitland, kicking lumber off, getting loaded, and we're overnighting it right back to Portland to be there the next morning to freaking unload again. So one of those nights, I was gonna haul iron out of the Caldwell yard, and I got unloaded in Fruitland, ran over to the Caldwell yard, and called Kenny and Big Johnny were gonna come down and load me.
Yeah.
And they came down freaking drunk, right? But they loaded me in like freaking 6 minutes. I'm like, "You guys can load me drunk every time."
Oh, the good old days.
Yeah. So it took off again, right?
Uh-huh.
But end of the week, Friday morning, I got my last load off and got my lumber on. I think I was bringing lumber back that day anyhow, and was gonna go to bed. Right? I'm like, "I did it."
Yeah.
Right? Challenge accepted. Challenge completed. And your dad calls me. "Hey, bet you $100 you can't unload that load and still be loaded to leave again Sunday." All right, son of a bitch, here I go. Off we went again. Freaking. And he was. I unloaded that night. Saturday morning, I reloaded there at the yard, and was sitting there in the office, still kind of buzzed, and he came in and handed me a $100 bill. He's like, just,
Yeah.
I
tell people this like a lot. I mean, it wasn't okay. 2 things. First of all, it wasn't that long ago before every load of scrap that delivered was super important to our cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's within my lifetime, and that's not that long ago. I mean, in my lifetime, right?
Yep.
So anybody that ever says like, "Oh, you guys got it good," and this and that, I'm like, listen up. Like, dude, we fucking busted our ass to get to this point, right?
Yep.
And we don't take anything for granted. That's why we still bust our ass today.
Yep.
But it wasn't that long ago. And the reality of it is, like, the advantage that trucks give you of running your own trucks is if you're coming into a month and the price is going down, you have the advantage of being able to turn it on, right? You still have to play within the boundaries, and now more than ever because of the e-logs and all the stuff that's been implemented over the years. But you have the ability when trucking is tight, because trust me, I mean, it's not a secret anymore. When the price of scrap's going down, any available flatbed going west has got scrap on it that's willing to haul it, and everybody's trying to do the same thing. And everybody's fighting over those trucks to get their shit out the door, or going east, depends on where their contracts are and what's going on.
Yeah.
So one of our biggest advantages has always been our ability to move scrap when it's time, or go get a big job that takes 20, 30 trucks and get the scrap out of there that month, and not drag it into the next month and hope that the price hangs around, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I mean, so this basically the story you just described is my dad knowing the price of scrap is about to go to shit, or at least $10, $20 or whatever that number was at that time, and trying to squeeze every nickel out of it.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad telling me stories of when he would run non-ferrous to Acme. That was when Charlie Neal was working at Acme, and basically he had to get a check to take back, was like for a portion of the load, or wait for him to weigh it in that day to bring it back to put it in the bank.
Well, we used to do it with Simon and Sons in Tacoma.
Yeah.
We'd wait for a check because we needed it for the cash flow.
And that's in the 2000s, people. Like, that's not 1980. Like, that's in the 2000s.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, we were probably, I want to say in the '02 range, when we were looking at having our first 1,000-ton month. And we had a company meeting as to what it was going to take, what the drivers were going to do, what the equipment operators were going to do, what, a whole circle of United is what we're going to do to freaking be able to make 1,000 tons of iron in a month and deliver it.
Yeah.
It was a big deal for us.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's like...
Yeah, exactly. It's significantly more. But at that time, I mean, and that's what I love about business is, like, you've known me long enough to know, like, the trophy part I don't really care about. Like, I love the chase probably more than I love the win. I mean, I like the win, but God, I just love the chase. And I love, like, the grit, like the just going after it. I mean, and trying to find the next best thing. And not the next best thing in the, like, what's the new, the shiniest thing, but just the next best way to build our business.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's because we get to work around all our buddies, at least. I mean.
Yeah, and I think that challenge also, you learn a lot from that challenge every time you do it. Which makes you better for the next challenge.
Yep.
And you're able to just keep continuing to progress.
Well, and I've learned, I mean, shit, it wasn't that long ago for me that I was trying to talk my dad out of buying trucks. And now I think he's laughs at me. Like, now I'm trying to, like, yeah, I think we could get a couple more. And he's just like I think he just finally, like, that deal, like, comes full circle to where he's like, yeah, you're figuring it out. And it is what it is.
Yeah, there was a time in United Life that people were really sure when it was your ball game, hauling wasn't going to exist anymore.
I've had that conversation with Joe at Treasure Valley Pipe, too. I was like, only because, like, I was such a scrap guy, like, at that time. I was just trying to get everything, my mind wrapped around everything. But I think as I've got a little older, I appreciate stuff a lot more. Like, I appreciate, like, how all of it works together. And I don't think you just get that. Like, you don't just show up and you understand, like, oh, everything's important. This is why this is. You have to really, like, live in it for a while and to understand that this is why these trucks are important. This is why driving nice trucks is important. This is why the pipe fits into our business. This is why, I mean, I think that doesn't just happen overnight. It takes a lot of it took me time anyways to really get a good grasp on it.
Right.
But now, I mean, I think I'm just as in love with them as anybody else. But it's for me, I'd rather it take a little bit longer so I can appreciate it more than just the instant gratification part of it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the things I always liked about you, and one of the things I've always appreciated about you, and I want to bring this up because this is kind of like a big harping point for me, especially in the scrap business and what we do, is there's always been like this huge emphasis on going to college, and you got to go to college to be successful, and you got to have a degree to really make it in life. And my thing is I'm big on hustle. I'm big on, like, grit, and I think if you go to college, that's great, and that's what you want to do, and it's what worked out for you. But you can go to college, and if you don't have any hustle and you don't have any, like, motivation, it doesn't really fucking matter. All you have is a college degree, and that's it. So everybody I've had on this podcast so far, I mean, some have went to college, some haven't, but everybody's been successful just out of straight hustle. You never went to college, and you've been uber successful in my book. And I don't think it's an either or, but one thing I've always appreciated about you is the hustle side of it. And there's never a better time just to say, I thank you, I appreciate what you do, and if you have fucking hustle in life, you'll win.
You get a lot done.
Whether it's in trucks or scrap or lumber or whatever your game is, like, you would have been super successful at freaking Franklin Building Supply if that's what you wanted to do.
Right.
I mean, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, do you have a take on that as far as, I mean... people out there that are like, and this is another reason why I bring this up, especially when we talk about transportation, is I think the truck driving as a career, truck mechanicking as a career, like sometimes gets shit on, and it gets shit on for fucking all the wrong reasons. And there's a lot of you can make good money, you can have a good life doing it.
Yep. You can. You just have to work at it. You know, trucking's not a job. Trucking's a lifestyle. You know, people that look at that don't enjoy trucking, you know, they look at it as a job, and you can make good money.
Yeah.
And you're just not truly happy. But it's that guy that's his lifestyle, and that's his drive, that's his motivation, that's who he is. You know, and you look at our grandparents, right? Our grandparents used to like define their self-value off of their work.
Yeah.
And our society's gotten away from that. So, but you still have those guys that's what drives them is their work ethic and who they are as based on their work. And those are the people that doesn't matter what they're doing, they're going to be successful.
Yeah. Because there's a lack of people willing to work anymore. You know,
Yeah.
when I saw an article this morning, Amazon Fresh is coming out 1,500 new jobs. I think it was like forget where it was. They're posting applications for 1,500 new jobs, and I'm like, and we're still stimulating the economy. The people are posting. I mean, I talk to small businesses all around the state, and everybody's hiring.
Right.
And we're stimulating the economy with more money. I'm like, there's a lot of work out there. And I still think in America you can still write your own check if you're willing to work.
Right.
And you're not willing to just take immediate gratification. If you don't have to have all the best shit as a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old. Or, you know, if you can just find something you like to do and go do it and enjoy it, then you don't need to go buy a bunch of extra shit. Because you're already happy doing whatever you're doing. And you can have a good life and career and actually work your way up through the system doing whatever.
Yep. You know, and I might not have made some of the decisions I made over the years if I'd had more education than what I have. But I still learned it. I still figured it out. I still drove past it.
Yep.
You know, it's...
and some of the best lessons in life are the most expensive.
Right? Yeah. But yeah, that's a big push. You know, you don't have to go to college to be successful.
You can if you want to, right? Like if that's what you want to do, if you want to play sports, or you're academically strong, or you have a career that requires it, by all means, go do it.
Yeah.
But man, you can build a badass career doing something you like without it if you don't want to do it. So, and to me, that's what you've done. And to me, and that's what I've done. I've enjoyed what I do, and we went two different ways, but we still end up in the same spot.
Right.
So,
Yep.
you can take either road and still get there.
For sure. You just got to work.
You just got to work.
That's always going to be the answer.
Yes, sir.
I don't care how you try to juggle the cards, figure out your magic formula. The answer is still you got to work.
Work.
Got to put it in.
Yep.
You can't be an 8 to 5 guy. You might be at the office 8 to 5 or wherever but you still got to be working on things.
You can be 8 to 5 and make fucking $15 an hour, and if that's what makes you happy, do it. If that's what you want, right? Like if that's your game, then by all means, get her done.
Yeah.
You know, you're just not going to build a business off 8 to 5. You're not going to build a career off 8 to 5. Where I come from.
Right.
You know, it ain't going to happen. Thanks, sir.
Yep. Thank you.
Appreciate it.